Hey guys, I swear I will put this on the internet. You know it will. Hey guys, welcome back to Coal Country Homestead. You are with us in our basement, our cantry, our pantry, and guess what? Our seed starting area too, right behind us. And Zachary is all excited to tell you all about how he makes the soil blocks, the recipe he developed, and all of the good stuff that we put into starting our seeds. So he's going to walk you through that, and I'm just going to be a fly on the wall here.
All right, guys, so here is a quick overview of all the stuff that I'll be using. There's my soil blocker and my tub and my measuring device that I use. And then I'm just going to swipe through these things quick, but I'm going to show you and talk about each one of these items individually and why I chose each one. So let's do that. All right, guys, so I've had a really good success rate with this recipe. Um, I did a lot of research on, what worked good for soil blocks, and basically you can make it as simple or complex as you want. But I'm going to give you an opportunity here to, I wrote down the recipe for you. So if you want to screenshot this or freeze it and write it down yourself. This is what the recipe actually calls for, and this these parts are measured loosely by just it's really just like a dog food bowl, probably about the size of one of the stainless steel dog food bowls. They're similar to the ones that we use to feed the dogs, but it's just basically a dog food bowl or potting bowl, whatever you want to call it. So 4 parts of potting soil means 4 heaping scoops with that bowl. Now you can use any measuring device based on what size of tub you're using. So doing this much with that bowl allows me to basically kind of fill that tub up, and it basically makes, I think it makes 2 full trays. So that's basically 100 soil blocks. So the first part in our recipe is our potting soil. Now you can use any potting soil you want, but I chose this Pro Mix potting soil for a reason. One of the reasons is what it's made up of. I'll try to zoom in here. Okay, so if you guys can read that, the makeup is 80 to 90% by volume peat moss. So my original idea was to use peat moss and coconut coir separately, but I found this Pro Mix and it already had 80 to 90% peat moss in it. So I didn't need to add any peat moss separately. So that's where my peat moss mix comes from. And it also has perlite. It also has some core in it. It has ground limestone. It has a wetting agent, and it has the mycorrhizae. So one of the reasons that I really like this Pro Mix was because of the last ingredient, the mycorrhizae, which is going to really help seedlings establish a good root system, and it allows the plant to actually extend its reach into the soil for not only water but also uptake of nutrients. So for starting seedlings, it's really beneficial to have the mycorrhizae in the soil. So that's why we chose this Pro Mix instead of a regular potting soil. Quick one thing to note about this Pro Mix, the mycorrhizae does expire in the soil. So if you look down there, the expiration date is written on the bottom of the bag, and it goes year, month, day. So if you find that on the bottom of the bag and you're still within a few months, then you should probably be good. But it's probably best to get the freshest bag possible. So every year I'm going to be getting a new bag, and then whatever I have left, I'll be putting that in the garden. But it's probably best to get the freshest bag when it comes to the mycorrhizae in the soil. Okay, next on our list, we have the next biggest part of the recipe, which is compost. So it's going to be 3 parts compost to 4 parts potting soil. Now you can use your own compost. I do have my own compost. However, I didn't think it was fully ready for seed starting. So this is a compost I used last year, and this worked really well. And this is organic. So we got these for really cheap on sale. They're not going to be carrying any anymore at the store, so we got them for, I think it was like $1 or something a bag. So for a cubic foot of compost, we thought that was a pretty good deal. But yeah, you can use any compost that you have available. All right, so here we have all natural organic earthworm castings. This is a great soil enrichment. It has a little bit of nitrogen in it and a little bit of calcium. It's great for indoor uses with your seed starting and like potted plants inside, but it's also good for your garden in general if you wanted to use it that way. You can top dress your plants with it. Basically, what earthworm castings are is worm poop, to keep it fairly simple. But we're going to use 2 parts worm castings to 4 parts potting soil and 3 parts compost. Those are our most used ingredients. Our next ingredient is going to be some coconut coir. Basically, what coconut coir does is helps with soil or water retention and improves the aeration of the soil. The Pro Mix does have coconut coir in it, but since it was mainly 80 to 90% peat moss, we wanted to add 1 part of coconut coir to our recipe. After that, we have vermiculite, which also improves moisture and helps with nutrient retention, and it also improves drainage and aeration and promotes faster seed and root growth. So basically, any kind of potting mix that you have usually has some kind of vermiculite in it or perlite, sometimes both. But the Pro Mix didn't have any vermiculite in it, so we're going to add some to our recipe. We also are going to add a little bit more perlite. So we're doing 1 part vermiculite and 1 part perlite to the recipe. And the perlite is also going to help with aeration and drainage and good root promotion. And last but not least, we have our fertilizers. So all 3 of these are organic choices. So we're going to do 1 red solo cup of the slow release fertilizer, which is a 344. We're going to do 1 red solo cup of bone meal, which I believe is 17, 217.0. So this is gonna give a lot of phosphorus or phosphate, which is going to greatly help and aid in root development and seedling strength. And then we have blood meal, which is a really good source of nitrogen. It's a 14.00, so that's going to be high in nitrogen. But we're only going to do a half of a red solo cup of the nitrogen. You don't want to overdo the nitrogen for seed starting or it could cause the plants to get a little bit leggy and grow a little bit too fast. You want the roots to develop better than the actual plant above the surface. You want to concentrate on root development when seed starting. The better the root development, the better the plant and fruits will be down the road. So that is our recipe, guys. So let's just go over it. It's going to be 4 parts potting soil, 3 parts compost, 1 part coconut coir, 2 parts worm castings, 1 red solo cup of organic slow release fertilizer, 1 red solo cup of bone meal, a half of a red solo cup of blood meal, 1 part vermiculite, and 1 part perlite. Now keep in mind the red solo cup measurement is with my dog food bowl as my 4 parts potting soil and compost, so you would have to adjust accordingly with a different measurement scale if you're using something different to measure. All right, so the only other thing that we need to go over is the materials. So you're going to need some type of mixing device or mixing tub. I found this works the best. I'm sure there's other things that might be a little bit better, but for me and how we do it, I like this better because it's about 6 inches high, a little bit more maybe, and then it's nice and wide, so you don't have to reach down and, like, say to a bucket or one of those tubs or something like that. It makes it easier on your back to, you could actually sit at a table and mix this up if you want to. So this is just a masonry tub that you can buy at a big box store like Home Depot or Lowe's, and they're not that expensive. So you need something similar to this. And then for soil blocks, you're going to need to order a soil blocker. So this is the one that we use. This is from Johnny's, and I believe that these are 2-inch by 2-inch blocks. I'm going to measure that and make sure. Then we also have this soil blocker, which I think we got this off of Amazon. Pretty sure we found this on Amazon. It has, let me see if I can get some light in there. We'll have Sam link this one, but it has 4 holes, and then if you can see, just if I can get the light on it, there's dibblers on each of those sections, and then that's about 4 inches high. And then you can also unlock this and take that out, and then you can do one big soil block, and that also has a dibbler on it. So that's a nice option to have there. And then whatever you use to measure. So this is how we do it, just real simple and easy. Dog food bowl and a red solo cup. And then of course you're going to need some gloves. So you're going to dry mix everything in your tub. You're going to have everything incorporated good, and then you're going to put water into it until you get the correct consistency, and we're going to go over that here in a second. And then for soil blocks, you're going to need some kind of trays. These are the trays I recommend. I highly recommend these trays. I do have some of the regular black trays, which if you can keep these indoors and from being out in the weather, they might last you a season or two, but these just crack so easily and they're hard to come by a high quality one. If you really want something that's going to last, I highly recommend to order these from the Bootstrap Farmer website. These are super thick, they're sturdy. You can literally grab it by the corner and carry pretty much a whole tray if you wanted to. Not that I would recommend that, but they're that strong you could carry it from one end without it breaking. So we just use the thin no hole tray underneath, and then we put the mesh tray on top of it, and then we put our soil blocks and plant our seeds in this one. And then when I'm ready to water it in the beginning, I just prop that up and water underneath them to bottom water the soil blocks until some roots are established, and then I do a combination of bottom and top watering. All right, but now that we've gone over everything and you guys know the recipe, I'm going to go ahead and put a mix together and show you how we mix that up and then get the correct consistency with the water. That's important to get the correct water amount in there to form the soil blocks correctly. So basically you don't want it too wet, but you want it wet enough. So I'm going to show you what that looks like here in a second. All right, guys, so we are going to start formulating our recipe. So we have our Pro Mix here, and we're going to get 4 parts of this bad boy out of this bag somehow. Now this is compressed, so you kind of want to fluff it up a little bit before you start going crazy, but now we have our compost. We're going to do 3 parts compost. And then our worm castings here. Just look how beautiful the worm castings are. And that's why you really want to add worm castings. I mean, you could use this stuff specifically, I think, for seed starting. I think this would clump up and form well in the soil blocks if you just wanted to use worm castings to keep it simple. And it's the most refined product that's in this recipe. As you'll notice as we go through and mix this, I'm going to be pulling out sticks and small rocks and stuff that are in the potting soil and the compost. So it's not perfect, but it is what it is. Next, we're going to add our coconut coir. Beautiful, beautiful looking stuff. And then for this part, I like to wear my mask when dealing with the powdery aeration of the fertilizers. So we're going to do 1 cup of the slow release fertilizer. One cup of the bone meal. And then finally, a 1/2 cup of the blood meal. As you can see, it gets a little messy. That's all right. And it's best if you do this outside if you can. Ideally, I'd like to do it outside. Normally, it's too cold around this time to do this outside. You want your products to be fairly warm when you're starting seeds. So we're going to gently dry mix this stuff till we get some of those powdery substances combined without causing too much of a cloud. But this is why you want to wear a mask for this part. I got it all mixed up and I'm looking at it and I'm like, it doesn't look right. It's because I totally forgot to add the vermiculite and the perlite. So we're going to add that now. 1 part of each of those. The bone meal, blood meal, vermiculite, and perlite, you definitely want to have your mask on for. So we're going to just incorporate these 2 items into the mix. And then we will be ready. All right, as you can see, that is nice and beautifully mixed. I didn't find many big particles at all this time around. And honestly, the soil blocks are pretty forgiving as far as particles go. I found, unless you got a stick like that, it's not really gonna cause any problems. Smaller sticks and particles are fine. So I'm pretty happy with this mix here. Looks good to me. Got a couple sticks and stuff, but rocks are definitely low this year, so looks like both the items are a little bit better on the rocks this year, which is good. Last year I picked out a lot of small rocks, but this year it looks like it's just mainly a few sticks, so that's always good to see the product kind of improve. So it looks like we're ready for water. So we're gonna add some water and get the right consistency, and we'll show you that. I took some of the soil mix out and put it in a bag for tomorrow. I don't want to make that much tonight. I feel like what we had there was a little bit too much for what I want to do. I'm just trying to get one tray done tonight, and then we'll work on more tomorrow. But so I took about half of it out. I have a 5-gallon bucket here of regular temperature water. Basically, a lot of people will put boiling water into their soil mix for their seed starting to sanitize and sterilize the soil. So our philosophy is that boiling water doesn't fall from the sky. So God doesn't provide the seeds with boiling water outside in a natural environment. And if you let seeds outside, if your chickens poop them up, if your dogs poop them up, if you let your seeds die on your plants, and they'll grow exactly wherever any of those processes left them, and they'll grow just fine, and you'll have volunteers all over your yard because of it. So seeds are really resilient, and although there are some things that would be negated by boiling and sterilizing the mix, those things can be treated as you're growing too. And I find that they're kind of far and in between. So hopefully you won't have any of those problems, and you really don't need to take that step, I don't think. So the other thing is that if you put boiling water into this seed recipe, it will kill the beneficial mycorrhizae, which you don't want to do. You definitely want to leave those whole and intact and alive so that they can benefit the seedlings and help their uptake of water and nutrients. So we're going to put regular temperature water into this mix. And we're just going to start with just a little bit. You're going to put a little bit in and mix it up. All right, so all the water is incorporated. So basically what you want to do is kind of form a ball and squeeze that ball. And I'm squeezing the crap out of it, and there's barely a couple drops coming out of it. So, and when I squeeze it, it kind of falls apart a little bit. So that tells me that it definitely needs some more water. So basically, you want to be able to squeeze it and have a decent amount of water come out of that squeeze. And then you want to be able to form it into kind of a ball and be able to basically juggle it around without it falling apart. So I can toss this ball around, and as you can see, it's not coming apart. So that's kind of how I judge whether I need to add more water or not. And it's not a perfect amount, so yeah, I think we got a good mix here. So we can start making some soil blocks. All right, so now we're ready to try to make a soil block. And we're going to see if the mix is properly made or not. So basically, we're going to kind of gather some soil up on the one end, press down firmly, wiggle back and forth, and kind of press your spring down to kind of compact the soil blocks a little bit. And then it should be kind of even on the bottom. So it should look something like that. It should be kind of even without any holes on the bottom. This is probably a little bit fuller than I want it. So we're going to try to get some of that out. Should be kind of even with the bottom of the soil block maker. And then once you have that, you're going to come over to your tray. And you're going to press down while pressing down onto the tray. And then you're going to lift up while pressing down. Give it kind of a wiggle. And then that should be what you end up with. Should be 4 perfectly nice 2x2 soil blocks with a dibble in each one. If you don't have that, then you can take them off, put them back in the mix, and try again. Alright guys, so that's kind of process there. We're gonna speed up and take you through this until we're done. Okay guys, so here it is, a full tray of soil blocks. Now you're going to do an even 4 all the way down, leaving this slot open, and then you're going to do 2 4s, and then there's going to be 2 spaces left open, and you just make those inside your mixer and then physically pull them out by hand and put them in place. So as you can see, got a nice set of 50 soil blocks that are ready for planting. Another good tip for the soil block maker is to have a separate bucket of water, or the bucket that you brought down to mix the water into. It doesn't really matter, but you want to be able to wash this soil block maker off in water as you're using it. As you saw, some of the ones that I was doing kind of had the tops pull off, and that's because it gets too gunked up on here and then it starts sticking to the top of the dibbler. So it happened on a couple of them, but for the most part, it was pretty good. This was a little bit wetter than I normally have it, so you can definitely go a little bit drier on the mix and it'll still work just fine. And yeah, so that's just a little tip. Wash it off like every other soil block process or so, to keep it from sticking if you need to.
Here's a little glimpse into how beautifully these soil blocks worked for us in last season before we were recording everything we do. But here are a few pictures showing you our seed starting setup with the lights that we use, the shelving, and I'm sure Zachary will dive into this in much greater detail in another video, but I couldn't help but share a few of these beautiful results with you. As always, thank you all for joining us in our home as we bring you along for our projects. I know normally we're in the kitchen, but tonight Zachary had all of this great seed starting info to share with you. This will be the first video in a series of seed starting and all of the tips that we have to share. So take care, everyone.